now we've nicely cleaned it up, we can continue with making new constructors. So in the Apple header file, we're going to make new constructors. So Apple. And then I want to have a constructor which uses the amount. So in this constructor, I will just set up the amount. But the amount, as you remember, was a private variable from the food class. So what I need to do is call my parent's constructor. So I say, okay, dear parent, I know you have a constructor with an amount possibility, so I will just call you. And that's basically it, because that's the only initialization I want to do at this moment. So the name is already known, because I'm an apple. The only variable is still this amount, so let's just implement it here directly, because nothing to do. So let's make it an inline implementation. Of course, remember that as soon as you make a constructor of your own, then you need to implement the default one as well. And this default one just implements from its parent. We can say now food default constructor, but if you omit this, then it automatically will call the default constructor of food. So we can leave it and just have two constructors. So, okay, let's try to use this. So I have a new apple. I'll just create a second one, apple, my apple 2, and I will automatically use this constructor with the amount. So hopefully if I now print it, see out, then I would get as a name, I'm an apple. So let's do that, my apple 2 dot get name. And with amount, and that would become 25. My apple 2 dot get amount. Fine. Okay, so now I have called the constructor of apple. The constructor of apple calls the food constructor, and that would make everything correct. Yeah, that works lovely. See, I have 2 apples, number of objects is 2, and for the third object I got I'm an apple with amount 25. Okay, so I use the constructor with the amount. Of course, I can also use a default constructor, so let's make a third apple. And then we could do it with brackets, but we could also just use no bracket, and then automatically the default constructor is called. So if I now say the get name and the amount, then I would get, of course, 0. Let's just copy it. Apple 3. And apple 3. Okay. Yeah, so I have a fourth object, the last one, again, an apple with amount 0. We could do similar things with pointers. So let's have an apple pointer, my apple pointer 1, and I make it a pointer. Okay, and then at this moment I can just create an object for this to be attached to this pointer. Would be new apple, and again we can do the default constructor like this, or we can use the constructor with the amount, 33. And I can also have a food pointer. My food pointer second. And again attach to this one an apple in 2 ways. Let's do the default one now. We print all of that. So let's make a copy. So here I have my apple 1, and then it's a pointer, so use the other notation, and my apple 1 get amount, and then let's copy this one. For the food pointer, let's not to forget deleting all these pointers. So not deleting the pointers, but deleting the objects attached to this pointer. So free the memory, so free my apple pointer 1 and free my food pointer 2. Okay, and just for fun, let's also check how many objects we got until now. Okay. Okay, we had the first 2 apples we used, then we had 2 objects, and we created a third one with an apple 25. Then we used the default constructor, so the amount is 0. Then we made 2 pointers, one to an apple and one to a fruit, and both of them know that they're apples, and until now we had 6 objects. 1, 2, yeah. And so this works splendidly. For the last part of this lesson 8, I want to look at multiple inheritance. In C++ that is possible. So in C# I don't think you can do it, but in C++ you can have more parents than one, multiple inheritance. And just to give you a demonstration, I already prepared some material. So what I did is I defined the orange, just like I defined an apple. So orange inherits from fruit. We have 2 constructors, one with an amount which calls the parent, and a default one. We have the function use and we have the function getName. And if we look at the implementation, it's basically exactly the same as the apple one. So I am squeezed for the use and getNamed I am an orange. Then if we used it, we can just say apple, my apple, but we could also do orange now, my orange, and I've used the second constructor. And just for my convenience, because I didn't like to type all the time, cout, apple name, etc., I made an extra function show, which is generic for all classes, so I could define that one in the food class. So I have a void show here, and I've implemented it in the food class. So in the food class, I just use the cout, what I've done all the time in the console applications in this function. So cout getName with the amount and then an end line. And so if you look at my console application, I have created an apple, I've created an orange, and I show both of them. So let's build the solution and let's run it. So you see, I have an apple with amount 0 because I used the default constructor, and I am an orange with 22 because I used the constructor with the integer. For this last part of the video, I'm going to look at multiple inheritance. For your convenience, I already prepared an extra class orange, which is basically the same thing as an apple. And so with the constructors, with the use and with the string name, and in the source file, I just said when they call use, I am squeezed, and when they ask me for my name, I say I am an orange. And what we'd like to do is use multiple inheritance to make an orange apple. So an orange apple would basically inherit as parents an apple as well as an orange. So I create a class orange apple, and then I just can say, please look at one of my parents would be an apple and another parent would be an orange. And now I have both of them as my ancestors. Then I can have some own methods. So for instance, I can make the constructors again. So orange apple with an amount. And then I can choose which parent I want to use to initialize this one. So let's choose my apple parent. Okay, and because I don't have to do anything myself, I will just do an inline implementation. And then for the other one, I have an orange apple default. Oh, I made a typo here. Apple. Orange apple default, and that doesn't have to do anything at all, because it's initialized with amount 0. Okay, then I just want to override one specific function for the demonstration, that is show. So the show function should say that I'm an orange as well as an apple. So let's implement this one in the CPP file. Okay, so I need to include the orange apple .h, and then I can implement a void from the class orange apple the function show. And what I will do is I will just use my parent's functionality of show. So first the one for my parent apple, and then I will make a connection, so standard cout and I'm not only an apple, I'm also an orange apple, an orange. So, and I'm going to call my other parent orange. Okay, so I now have an orange apple which has one overridden function, the function show, and the orange apple inherits from apple and from orange, and I should not forget to put the include in there, otherwise we wouldn't know what they are. So apple.h and include orange.h. Okay, and then in my console application I can create now an orange apple, this one, and my orange apple with an amount of 50. And now I can show this orange apple with the overridden function show, and hopefully that will do the trick. So let's do a build. Okay, no mistakes. Let's run it. And indeed, so the last 3 lines, I'm an apple with amount 50 and I'm an orange with amount 0. So this orange apple inherited from apple and from orange and could use both elements. And if you want to use one specific element, you just put the parent keyword in front of it and make your own extra functionality. Normally this multiple inheritance will be used to implement interfaces. So then you make one of the parents a virtual class, pure virtual class, and then that would be used as an interface you're used to doing at C#. Okay, so this concludes the lessons about classes. I hope you enjoyed it, and then for the next class I will talk about the copy constructor.